I'm Dr. Barry, licensed psychologist, and here I share legal and entertainment news from a psychological perspective. So I said this. This is a quote from me. I said, I am not going to talk about Sarah Boone again until December 2nd. I think I said that last Saturday, not this past Saturday, but maybe the one before that. I don't know. I said the thing, and what I meant is that I wasn't going to cover any of the old stuff, but Owens, he keeps adding new stuff. So on Tuesday, I covered his entire motion for a new trial. And that's where I talked about my frustration as well with the fact that one of the reasons filed for a mistrial was about Georgia's mother getting upset during court, as any human should, as any person would. And she did the appropriate thing. She got up, she left. And I think we even played a portion of it just so that we could see exactly what he said, exactly what happened, because in his motion, he said that the judge didn't give a curative instruction to the jury. And honestly, I don't think the jury convicted her because George's mom got upset or because Dr. Werner questioned whether or not she had PTSD. I don't think it was any of those things. I honestly think some of the worst evidence for Sarah Boone was her own words, her own actions, the things she recorded on her phone. That's where we are. That is what we are doing. And let's all just take a breath and remember Owens is just doing what he's supposed to do for his client. He's supposed to find any possible reason to ask for a new trial. I don't think any of this is going to go through. I just don't. I don't think I don't think any of it is going to happen. I agree with you, Terry. He's just doing what a good defense lawyer would do. So today we are going to talk about Dr. Werner's her deposition because Owens was upset about it and he filed it. And so when I say he was upset about it, what I mean is that let me pull it up. Her his request. Oy, it's not showing up the way it's supposed to. Okay, there it is. All right. So, in his motion for a new trial, he specifically said that the trial court failed to disallow the opinion testimony of the state's rebuttal expert witness, Dr. Tonya Werner, after the state failed to disclose before trial that the witness had formed a new opinion. And they got it on record that number one, the state didn't know that she was going to answer the question the state asked the way that she asked it. So put a 1 in the chat if we need to go back and see this part from trial. So put a 1 if we need to see it again. Put a 2 if we all know what happened. We don't need to go back and watch it. But if y'all would like to go back and see the moment when Owens's head exploded, we can, and I'm saying figuratively because obviously it wasn't literal, but okay. I saw at least one and I kind of wanted to do it anyway. Okay, so some twos, I'll give it some time. Y'all let me know. Okay. Okay, so I'm seeing, so going ahead, I'll give it a few more minutes. Okay, so we don't need to do this. Let's go straight to her deposition. Okay. So this occurred on October 4th, 2024. And the people present are Dave Cacciatore, William J. for the state, James Owens for the defense, and also there was an intern on behalf of the defendant that was there as well. So Owens begins his direct examination. Some of this is just going to be about their just so okay. And I think he doesn't like the way that she answers questions, but what is the name of the facility where you work? Meridian Behavior Healthcare. Are you a partner there or do you own the business? No, it's a nonprofit. I work for them. What do you mean by nonprofit? It's not for profit. It's not funny, but it kind of is. So there are nonprofit community agencies where they are registered as a 501(c)(3). I think that's the tax term where they balance their books. And he says, "You don't get a salary by them." No, I do. It's a nonprofit organization like the Salvation Army is nonprofit. It's a nonprofit organization, a community mental health center. Okay. How long have you worked for them? So then she answers, almost 10 years since 2015. All right. What did you do before that? And so she goes into her history, to all the stuff that she did. They did get into the fact that she attended American University of the Caribbean for medical school, and Owens says American University in the Caribbean, and she says of the Caribbean. Where is that? At the time I went there, it was in Plainview, Texas. I believe it's now on St. Martin, but it had been hit by a hurricane and they had relocated to the mainland of the United States at the time I attended. Why did you choose that school? I actually had not finished my undergraduate degree and they accepted me. I got waitlisted at the University of South Florida and they accepted me at American University of the Caribbean, and they were in Texas. So I was just anxious to go and I went. Prior to that, and so they go into all this. Where did you complete your bachelor's? University of South Florida, blah, blah, blah. And all of those things. Okay. So those are the questions. They ask about housing, if she lived on campus. I don't understand why, but maybe this is helpful. Okay. We haven't gotten in. Okay. Okay. Now, as it relates to Sarah Boone, my client, obviously we understand that you evaluated her. Was it yesterday or before? Answer, day before yesterday. Okay. And that was at the Orange County Jail. Yes. And that was with the 2 prosecutors and myself. That's correct. I wanna make sure good, this is big. Okay, good. Alright. How long was the evaluation? It was approximately 2 hours and 20 minutes. Did you do any testing? I did a mental status examination. What is that mental status examination called? That's what it's called. It's called a mental status examination. That's what it's called. Oh, poor baby. It's okay. She did a mental status examination. It's a mental status examination. That's it. That's what it's called. And what else did you do besides that test? Interviewed her. Is that customary in the field? As a psychiatrist, yes. Yes. How long have you been on this case? I'm not sure when they first contacted me, in all honesty. And then question, well, the event occurred February of 2020. And then I guess she gets cut off. I was. Do you know if? No, I was. Okay, so I guess they're cutting each other off. Do you know if you were contacted during the year of 2020? No, sir, I was not. I was contacted this calendar year. So you haven't been involved in the case at all until 2024. That's correct, which is fine because they're talking. That's not a big deal, but I get why a lawyer would want to know how long she had been on the case. I seem to remember that they had retained an expert, a potential rebuttal expert, prior to me coming in. I came in on the case in late August of 2024. I seem to recall that they already had a rebuttal witness. You were not involved in any way prior to me coming in August of 2024. She's just like, I'm not sure. I said this calendar year, which is 2024. So I very well may have been on board before you came on. Do you have any notes that would reflect? Do you have any notes that would reflect in your file about when you came on? It would probably be on my calendar somewhere where I first had a phone conference with them or in an email. I will have to look for it. Can you check? Can you check that and get back to either me or the prosecutor about when you first came on the case?" She said, "Yes." All right. And what all did you do to get caught up to speed on the case to be able to evaluate her and then diagnose her and then render your opinions? And so she answers, "I reviewed some documents that were referred to me, and then I evaluated her at the jail." All right. How many documents were you asked to review? "I was provided with the Orange County Sheriff's Office investigative report." How many pages is that? It was several printouts. It was 150. Okay. Um, no, I take that back. 50. I have 58 pages of that. Okay. I have a transcript of a taped interview of Sarah Boone, which was the same thing that Owens's expert reviewed. Is that transcript of the 2-hour interrogation at the Orange County Jail. So this was the same answer she gave on the stand. I don't know if it was an interrogation or not. The title of the document is Transcript of Taped Sarah Boone of Taped Interview of Sarah Boone. It was from February 24th of 2020. How many pages was that? Again, so oh gosh, this is going to be fine. There are several different printouts, and the last page I have is 177. Okay. What other documents did you review? I have another transcript of a taped interview of Sarah Boone, and this one I have dated as February 25th, and that one is 394 pages. But it may be a continuation of the other ones because it is not dated at the top. She wrote at the top of it, so she didn't know. Let me see at the back. Okay, so that's just that part. Then I have medical records from Aspire Health, and she said, hold on. Number 4 document was medical records from Aspire Health. Who was treated in those records? Sarah Boone. Do they have the dates of treatment? October 25th, 2018. And the first one is January 23rd, 2018. Okay. I remember that was number 4, the medical records. What's next? Then I have medical records from Sioux, so from that health place. Okay. Who is the patient? Sarah Boone. They have the dates, not a problem. Was that for some type of psychological? That was an emergency room. I've lost that page already. Some of them are psychiatric and some of them are not. July 29th was an emergency room visit, and she started at this place. She started on an antibiotic, so I doubt that was psychiatric. Okay, nothing else about those records. No. All right. What else did you review? Then there were two printed out sections of, it looks like, text messages and location pings of a cell phone, I assume. They're not labeled. It's just, there is 2 of them. What are the dates? They talk about the dates of those things. Okay. I want to get to the part where they talk about her opinion. And so, okay. So they're talking about what she reviewed. Did you consider those text messages in your evaluation? She answers, I mean, I read through them, so I'm aware of what's in there. And I'm aware that they, had relationship issues and that she was, taking pictures and that they were fighting over text. And, I'm aware of relationship issues going back and forth via reading the text messages. Was there anything from those text messages that stuck out to you that caused you to pause and feel like that may have some impact on your evaluations? No. As I said, it made me aware that they had a volatile relationship. I mean, in some of them, there were capital letters coming from her cursing at him, calling him idiot, effing idiot for overdrafting. And, there are some referring to domestic violence. I'm going to cut out the So I'm not going to read the I mean, there are different text messages in there that demonstrated they had a harmful relationship, a volatile relationship. Would you consider that in your evaluation? Of course. Okay. Anything that sticks out to you other than what you indicated? No. All right. What else did you review? That's it. Okay. So he's going to re-go over the different things that she reviewed. Okay. I've got a printout from text message, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so he's saying something and she says, "That's misstating what I said." Tell me what you mean then. I said that I can tell which messages came from the phone that's attributed to Sarah Boone. I did not say that they came from Sarah because when they don't know if she was the one who had the phone, they don't know if she's the one that did it. Do you have any reason to believe that they wouldn't have come from Sarah, the ones that you attributed to her phone? I have no idea who typed them. How would I know? Dr. Werner has a little bit of snark. Has a little bit of snark. Oy. Okay. Okay. So the question is, okay, but there is nothing to indicate that they wouldn't have come from Sarah if they were from Sarah's phone, correct? I would assume so, but I'm not stating that I know they came from Sarah. I understand. Okay. But you've been advised that the number that's okay, so they're just gonna talk about the phone. Good gosh. It's fine. So they're gonna go back and forth. They're okay, volatile relationship. Anything else that you would glean from those text messages, those 2 sets of text messages about Sarah or no? Okay. Anything else you reviewed? No, sir. Have you reviewed any videotapes? I have not. Have you reviewed any audio tapes? I have not. Have you reviewed the autopsy report? I have not. Okay. It may have been sorry, I guess she's going to check to see if it was the investigative report. I know I've at least seen a description of it at some point, so I described the incident report. No, I don't see it in here, so I don't know that it was probably described in here. Okay, so they're just going back and forth. Did you receive any medical records from George Torres? I did not. And explain to me exactly what your title is. So we're going back. Her answer is, I'm the chief medical officer. What does that mean? So we're just jumping all over the place. It means that I'm in charge of all the medical staff. Is your job basically administrative duties? Why does he talk down to people? Welcome, welcome. Hello. Does he talk down to people or is it just me? Maybe, and I don't think he means it. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. That's a portion of it, but it's probably the smallest portion of my job. What are the other parts of your job besides the small portion for administration? Yes. So I work 7 days a week on the crisis stabilization unit in Lake City, Florida, which she mentioned on the stand. I run that unit. I have approximately 30 patients there that I see during the week and on weekends and holidays. Are those Go ahead. Are those patients that have come in over the weekend that are in some form of crisis? They come in and out. Yes, sir. Because it's not always admissions on the weekend. A person can be admitted any day of the week. His question: is there a limited amount of time that they can stay? Why are we talking about this? But we're just going to keep going. I don't see, okay, but we're just going to keep going. Is there a limited amount of time that they can stay at the facility in Lake City? There is no specific limited amount of time. We are a short-term treatment facility. We are a Baker Act receiving facility. So majority of our patients are on Baker Act. So in Florida, Baker Act is when people are held when they are really don't want treatment. So that's where a court has determined that they have to get evaluated and a court is making a decision of do they have to stay, do they have to get involuntary psychiatric care. Our average length of stay is typically 3 to 5 days. We do have some outliers that do stay much longer than that if we're holding them specifically to transfer to another facility, such as one of the state hospitals. They will end up staying longer than that. But our typical patients will only stay 3 to 5 days, maybe a week. long enough, and he cuts her off. That would be would it be fair to say that's probably 95% of the patients at the facility stay just short term? It's actually probably 60 to 65%. Okay. And would you treat them by talking to them? No, by talking to them and medication? Correct. We have therapists, we have recreational therapy, we have psychotherapy, we have medication management with them, we do family therapy. So we try to address all of their issues. Okay. So how much of your work load would you say is attributed to the Lake City Crisis Stabilization Facility? Well, Monday through Friday, I'm there 50% of the time. So every morning, and then I'm there on weekends in the morning also. So more than 50% of my time is related to that. All right. What is the other time? My forensic work. Now, what do you mean by forensic work? And so this is a good that was a good question. So forensic psychiatry is an area of psychiatry where psychiatry intersects with the law. So anytime there was a legal case that has some sort of psychiatric question, whether it be in the civil arena or the criminal arena. Are you a psychiatrist? Yes, sir. Okay. Now, I know that we've got a couple of experts on our side. Dr. Julie Harper. Do you know her? I do not. Do you know what her title is? I believe she's a psychologist, isn't she? I think a forensic psychologist. And the other expert we've got is Dr. Michael Brennan. Do you know him? Answer, I do not. Okay. Do you know what his title is? Answer, I do not. Question, but it's not really a question. It's Mr. Owens. I think he is a forensic psychologist as well. Okay. Y'all, I'm gonna make myself big. I wonder if Owens was thinking that because his experts are so like, I think he put his experts on a pedestal, like, and I almost think he wanted her to respect his experts and to have their opinion mean more than hers when it's two experts can have a different opinion. But okay, we're going into this. Oh, okay. Question. Explain to me what the difference is between your position as a forensic psychiatrist and their position as a forensic psychologist. So I'm an MD and they're not. What are they? They're they can be PsyDs, they can be PhDs, but they're not MDs. They did not go to medical school. So this is her answer continuing. So they typically do therapy, but they don't prescribe medication or understand medical issues, so to speak. Yeah. And I think this is what he was talking about with that psychologists don't understand medical because that came up. I don't know if it was during her I think it was during her direct or during her cross examination in front of the jury. I think he tried to bring something about that up or I'm confused about that. It all went so fast and yet so long, but I think this was what he was remembering. So I am a psychologist. I am a PsyD. I have a doctorate of psychology. PsyDs are more clinic focused, practice based. It's the practitioner scholar model. PhDs are more research based. I did do a dissertation, but my dissertation wasn't nearly as thorough as a PhD dissertation might be. Thank you for sharing this on your tab, Lori. I really appreciate it. Lori does great coverage of cases as well. And you said I think he's fishing for any little thing that he can use to make her less um to make her less credible or to try to attack her. And the odd thing, the thing that he could have focused on, the jury could have seen his experts as more credible, especially the fact that Dr. Harper saw her so many times. If I was on the jury, I would also wonder if because Dr. Harper spent so much time with her and seemed to be so Sarah Boone, like was there any Like, I'm just going to say the words that I'm thinking. Was Sarah manipulating it at all? Because she very much wants to be viewed as the victim, and but only to people that don't know the whole story. Once you know the whole story, you're like, "Ugh," because she leaves out all the stuff she did. She just blames him, ugh, in my opinion, if I have to say that. All right, let's go back to this. Oh, okay. And then uh, answer, they typically do testing, psychological testing, and therapy. Is there a big difference in the roles, the two separate roles, psychiatrist and psychologist, and their roles for what? For treatment in the forensic field? Sure. We're both asked to do evaluations. They do testing, psychological testing when it's indicated, which it's not always indicated. If there is cognitive issues going on, they can do that, or personality issues. They can that they can, or maybe they mention it that can come into play with regards to psychological testing can be helpful. Where um And so she's gonna say psychiatrists have a better understanding of the medications and any medical aspects of the individuals. And so Owen says, "Okay." And then you said that you're okay, we're going back to the administrative roles. You said you do administrative roles, and then you said you did 50% or more of your work is at the Lake City, Florida Crisis Stabilization Center. And then you said you do forensic work as a forensic psychiatrist. What percentage of your work is a forensic psychiatrist? That's a good idea. I have no idea. It's probably 45%. And that would involve, go ahead. 45% of your work is forensic psychiatry. Probably 50-50. It just depends on the week, in all honesty. Because if I have a trial going on or a lot of depositions, traveling to Orlando to see somebody, then I shift things around and more time may be dedicated this week to forensic work as opposed to I may have somebody cover a I may have somebody cover patients one day. So I do less clinical work this week. It just depends on the week, I guess. So as a forensic psychiatrist doing this forensic work, is it mostly relating to competency to proceed? I do a lot of competency to proceed, yes. I also do a lot of guardianship evaluations. Those are probably the majority of the work I do, in all honesty. Okay. Now, guardianship evaluations. I assume that's where family have filed some petition with the court that one of their family members doesn't have the ability to care for themselves or manage their affairs for themselves, and they're asking the court to make a determination to appoint one of their family members to oversee. Yes, typically it's the family that files, or more recently, it's facilities. So I think there have been some kind of change in their ability to get reimbursed from different payer sources unless they seek guardianship of the individuals, which can get a little scary. Like when the facility becomes the guardian, in my, uh, but that's just my own personal thoughts. Like that's a whole other video about um, because guardianship means that you can control. Now, maybe it's just medical guardianship where you're just making medical decisions for the individual. But if that includes financial, that gets a little sticky if the facility has that, in my own personal thoughts. So if there are individuals in their facility that don't have families, the facilities will file to have guardianship and to have a guardian appointed. Okay. So the facility has guardianship, and then I guess there's like another guardian that's appointed. So if they're in a nursing home, so the question is, so if they're in a nursing home or somewhere like that, answer correct, yes. Question, okay, but not a question. Answer, and literally over the last 2 years, I'm laughing a little because they're just going back and forth. They're just having a conversation, and maybe this is something that she's passionate about, but okay. Answer, and literally over the last 2 years, the majority of the evaluations have been coming from facilities, and it's been a higher number, so I think something has changed in regards to their payer sources, honestly. Question, so what percentage would you say of your forensic work is related to either the guardianship or competency proceedings. I don't know. I don't keep track of it that way, in all honesty. Well, take your best guess. Probably half of my forensic work is made up of by the two of those. Question. All right. What is the other half? Answer. I do insanity at the time of the crime. I do competency to be evaluate. No. Ooh, yeah. I'm gonna. So I'm gonna restart this answer. I do sanity at the time of the crime. I do competency to be for DP. So there are certain words I can't say on YouTube. We're just, if you can see the word, we're gonna say DP. I'm appointed by the governor to do those. I do personal injury cases. I do medical malpractice. I do a lot of tobacco cases against big tobacco. So just any number, anything in the, he's done. Okay. Have you ever testified in court? Answer. Numerous times. Yes. Question. How many times would you say you've testified? Answer. Oh, hundreds, if not over 1,000. Numerous. Lots. Question. In criminal cases? Answer. Criminal and civil. Yes. Question. What percentage of the time? Oh, what percentage of the times? We're missing a word, but it's okay. Have you testified? Okay. So I'm going to read this again. What percentage of the time you've testified were in criminal cases? It was fine. Sometimes I have issues reading, but we're good. Answer. In court, I'm not sure. In all honesty, I have no idea. Question. Would it be less than 20? Answer. No. No, it's question. Give us a answer. They're just interrupting each other. It would be, I'm guessing, question. Okay. Maybe the reporter missed the number because it sounds like they were going back and forth. Answer. I'm completely guessing, but it would probably be 60%. Okay, she answered later. Question. Okay. Oh, this is a little painful, but it's okay. We're gonna get there. And we still have like 20 more pages of this back and forth before we get to the prosecution's prosecution's cross, and then Owens gets to redirect for this deposition. That's what I know we have coming. Okay. Question. Okay. What is that mainly incompetency to proceed type cases? Okay. So the question is, and is that mainly incompetency to proceed type cases? Answer. Mainly because those are the most common, although I have to say that they did not used to be the most common. They're the most common evaluations I do, but they're not typically the most common evaluations that would have testimony. Because in the past, they would they would get 3 evaluations and not have testimony. Okay. But here more recently, they've only been doing 2 evaluations and having testimony. Okay. So I guess something changed with the way that they handled these. Question. Okay. So a lot of the times you wouldn't testify. You would just submit a report, correct, in those types of evaluations. Question, and that would be sufficient. It would be accepted by both parties, your opinions. Answer, yes. Question, okay. And then you said you've done some work outside the criminal area. You said it's about 50% of the work you do. Answer, of the civil work, again, I'm guessing. So I don't remember what percentage I assigned to that because I'm just guessing. Question. Okay. In the criminal cases, you testify primarily for state. Answer. I'm called by both sides. Question. All right. How many times have you been called by the defense as a witness in a trial? Answer. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I've been doing this for 20 something years. I have absolutely no idea. It's so welcome, welcome to everybody. Oh my gosh. We're going to keep going. Question. You don't keep any kind of records of that? Answer. No, sir. Question. You were asked about that from time to time by lawyers about the work you've done. Answer. Yes. Okay. In criminal cases, what opinions are you asked to render? Answer. I think we just went through that. So I'm laughing. Okay. So this helps me understand the back and forth between her and Owens on the stand. Okay? They got spicy in the deposition. The deposition was not big spicy, okay? Just like a little back and forth. Like it's what? I'm okay. Like, dude, I didn't we just go through that? Like, I just answered that. Okay. So we have to go back. In criminal cases, what opinions are you asked to render? Answer. I think we just went through that. Competency to proceed, sanity at the time of the crime. Question. Okay. And you think the percentage that you testify for the state, she never is about 50-50 with the time you spent testifying for the defense? She didn't say that. She said she couldn't say. If I'm remembering correctly, correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. When he asked about the percentage, I thought she said that she didn't know. I don't think she said 50-50. I think he's making that I don't know, but we'll see. Um answer, it's probably more weighted it's probably weighted more sorry, it's probably more weighted towards state. The times it depends on your question. So the times I've been hired is probably more weighted towards state. The times I've testified, I have actually no idea because again, a lot of the times I don't testify. Okay. And what have you been? You said you've testified as an expert. Have you testified, I assume, as an expert those hundreds of times, almost 1,000 times as an expert? Yes. I also testify every week as a treating physician through our Baker Act court. So what happens in Baker Act court is if the facility wants to hold the individual longer than so it's my so this is what we do in Virginia. I'm guessing it's similar in Florida. Sometimes the facility psychiatrist or somebody will have to testify to talk about the person, how they're currently acting and why they need to be hospitalized against their will. And it's often the chief medical expert. Like it's normally somebody high up, a psychiatrist that's going in giving that testimony, maybe talking about how they presented, the current treatment plan, going through those types of things. So, question. Okay, well, I'm referring right now to criminal trials in which there is a jury that's been impaneled. Sure. What would you qualify as an expert to testify about? Answer. This is a good question. I've been qualified to testify in regards to psychiatric issues and anything under the umbrella of forensic psychiatry. So, any type of psychiatric issue that they're having questions about, competency questions, diagnosis. So, if this question was asked to me, my answer to this question would be I've been entered as an expert in child psychology, in clinical psychology, and in adult psychology. I forget. Those are the ones that I can definitely remember off the top of my head. I've been entered as an expert in Stafford, Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania County. Those are the ones that I don't think I ever had to go down to Caroline. I don't think I ever testified in Caroline. So if I was asked that question, that would be my response because when you're entered as an expert, you're able to give an opinion. And it's up to the triers of fact, whether it be the judge or the jury, what weight they give that opinion, but before so I testified in court as a fact witness when I was before I got my doctorate and my license. In the state of Virginia, you normally need a license, a mental health license to testify as an expert. So before I was licensed, I was entered as a fact witness and I was able to say what I saw, what I heard. I was able to talk about the facts of the case, but I could not give an opinion. And sometimes one of the lawyers would try to ask an opinion, and I know legally, like, because I could get in trouble with with my governing bodies if I step outside of my role. And so I would say I'm not able to give an opinion on that, even as an expert. I'll give you an example. If If I get involved in a custody case and I have never had any interaction with a parent, I could not give an opinion in court about whether or not that parent should have custody or not. I could only testify to the facts of maybe what my client has told me, which I'm like, I could only talk about my opinions, my general idea, but I could not give an opinion about whether a parent should or should not have custody if I've never evaluated them, if I've never met with them. So that's just a little sidebar, side note. We're just having a moment here because, all right, just because. All right. Okay. So, question. Well, I know usually in criminal case it would involve competency or either insanity. Answer correct. Are there any other ways that you would be allowed to testify in a criminal case other than for competency or sanity? So she's already said forensic psychiatry, but okay. Answer. I have done mitigation and aggravating factors. Question. You're talking about at sentencing. Answer. Correct. And criminal. Question. Okay. And so you would testify, what would be aggravating factors in terms of forensic psychology? I wouldn't know. You would have to ask a forensic psychologist. I'll tell you, I understand. Y'all, I understand. I understand. So I don't believe I don't know if Sarah, because I think if she had ever had an interaction with her, she would have had to disclose that. They would have to be aware of that. So how does HIPAA work with a therapist testifying? So there was a time when I was called by the state and my client was on the defense side and I invoked confidentiality or like legally whatever it's called, whatever, because sometimes there's a clinical term and then sometimes there's a legal term. I invoked, so I was asked a question and I was like, my client hasn't waived their confidentiality. And then the lawyers argued about it. And then the judge said, go on ahead and say it. So if I'm compelled by a judge to to testify in court because I was subpoenaed to court, so I had to show up. And then um uh but the client knew I was coming to court. I prepared the client, "Hey, if I do have to testify, these are the things that I would say," just so they were aware. I asked them, it's their right to talk with their lawyer. Would you like to sign so that I can speak, or would you like for me to say, "I can't speak"? Please know I still might have to. And so, HIPAA a court can compel you to speak, but it becomes a whole thing. Um and so, yeah, I hope that answers your question. Oh, the snark. So Owens's problem was he asked her what would be the aggravating factors in terms of forensic psychology. She's a psychiatrist, she's not a psychologist. And so she said, I would know, you would have to ask a forensic psychologist. I'm sorry, I apologize. Forensic psychologist, psychiatrist. What would be aggravating? It could be anything. It could be anything. So you would have to question, give me an example. Answer. You have your statutory aggravating factors and you have, non-statutory aggravating factors. So interrupting her. Would it be some kind of diagnosis that you would give? No. I can comment on their upbringing, their educational background, any of those issues or factors. Question, you're never called to testify as diagnosing someone with a type of personality trait? Answer, yes. Yes, I can be. Question, as an aggravator or a mitigator? Answer, yes. That can be also an aggravator or mitigator. Sure. Question. Okay. As it relates to that, diagnosis with some type of personality, how often are you asked to do that? Answer. Every case. As A competency case asks for a diagnosis. You can tell she's exhausted because we are 30 pages into this deposition, and we haven't talked about her evaluation of Sarah Boone. I'm not a lawyer. I would think you would be like, I feel like he's digging into the weeds a little. That's just my own personal thought. It's okay. But question. Okay. And what are generally the diagnoses in these types of cases? Answer. There is no general diagnosis. Each individual is different. I can't go in with any kind of notion that there is a general diagnosis. Each individual is different. Question. Can you give me one diagnosis that you would render in a criminal case? Schizophrenia, alcohol use. Question. Alcohol abuse or alcohol use? Answer. There is no diagnosis of alcohol abuse anymore. We don't use that. It's alcohol use disorder is the official diagnosis. And the DSM-5, that's one of them. Question. Okay, schizophrenia or alcohol use disorder. What other type of diagnoses? Answer. There are thousands of them. Anything in the DSM-5 TR is fair game. Any diagnosis. Question. I understand, but there would seem to be there was some kind of common diagnosis you would have in criminal realm that would come up before a jury. So she just throws out antisocial personality disorder, but each individual is different. So some have those and some don't have those. So remember, antisocial personality disorder is what some people refer to psychopathic traits. And antisocial means going against social norms. It's not somebody that doesn't like being around people. It's about social norms. That's what antisocial personality disorder, that's what that goes to. Question. Are you allowed to render those types of opinions before a jury? Answer. Yes. Question. Okay, so I've got schizophrenia, alcohol use disorder, antisocial personality disorder. Anything else that is in common, fairly common diagnosis on your part in a criminal case? What? I don't even understand the question. Answer. You just asked me, are there any diagnoses? I'm not telling you those are common ones on my part. Each individual case is different. So I approach them and I evaluate them and I diagnose them based on what presentation they have. Okay. I'm starting to get I've found her I think I've found her tone. Good gosh. I d I wish he had asked his expert what types of questions should he ask of the mental health, because I don't think he has a good understanding of mental health diagnoses. Based on these questions, I don't think he knows what he's trying to get at, and just my own that's how I feel reading this. Question. Okay. Anything else you would want to say about your testimony that you feel like makes you an expert in the field in which you're talking about to render opinions? Answer. No. I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have. Question. Have you ever testified in a battered spouse syndrome situation? Great question. Answer. I have. Question. How many times? Answer. I think I testified recently to the fact that it was 5 and 10 times. But after I testified to that and thinking about it, it's actually a lot of cases where it actually isn't the main focus of the case. So I think the number is higher than that. All right. So question, all right. But you believe the fair estimate would be between 5 and 10 times? Answer. No. I just said I believe that it is more than that. Question. Okay. But you've testified that somebody suffers as battered spouse. Answer. Suffers or didn't? Question. Under that syndrome. Answer. Correct. Question. So if it's not 5 or 10, what would the number be? Answer. I'm not sure. Again, I don't keep track of that over the however long I've done that. But a lot of, intimate violence cases involved. Question, would you say under 20? Answer, I'm not sure. Question, well, ma'am, you've got to give me some type of number. Answer, I'm not sure. Question, would you say under 50? Answer, yes, probably under 50. Question, okay, so you think you've testified about Batter syndrome in 50 cases before a jury? Answer, I didn't say before a jury. It may have been a bench trial. I said that, and it might have been a deposition. But I believe I've testified with regards to that, yes. Question. Okay. In front of a jury, how many times have you testified as an expert about battered syndrome, about battered spouse syndrome? Answer. No idea. Question. Would it be less than 10? Answer. I have absolutely no idea. I'd be guessing. I mean, I'm just guessing at those numbers, so I have no idea. Question. Well, how long have you been rendering opinions that people suffer from BSS? Answer. Since my training. Excuse me? I'm coming back to the chat. I agree. Because if she doesn't know, because it's wrong to give an answer because she can be impeached based on what she says here. So if she says something different on the stand that isn't what she said here, she can be impeached on that. And this is painful. Um, I don't think he really understood. I don't think he understood the types of questions that he should have been asking her. Um, and mental health is difficult, it's complex, and they came up with this with battered spouse in, like, I think it was 30 days before trial. And so this deposition might have been, like, within days of them filing, maybe not days, but, like, within a week or 2 of them filing that they were going to say battered spouse syndrome. And, okay, so excuse me? Answer, since my training in 1998. It's been we're trained on it. Question. All right. What training have you received regarding battered spouse syndrome? That's a good question. Answer. So we received training on it during our psychiatric residency and then during my uh, Florida Psychiatric Society. I actually presented numerous times on DV at their meetings. All right. Question. All right. Tell me about the training at the psychiatric residency. What was the training regarding BSS? Answer. Just generalized training. Just like you learn about antidepressants and we learn about generalized anxiety disorder, so we have training. That's he cuts her off. Was there a class or something like that or seminars on it? Answer, yes, we would have had seminars. We would have lectures during the week as residents. Question, okay, all right. Answer, we'd go to lecture series. We would have been lectured on that. Correct. Question, so during that psychiatric residency, how much time did you spend on lectures on BSS? Answer, I have no idea. That was 20 something years ago. No idea. Would you say less than 10 hours? I have no idea. Okay. Would it is it possible it was less than 10 hours? No. Not over a 4-year period of time. No. Okay. You didn't take any class on battered spouse syndrome, did you? And then answer, I'm not sure what you mean by that because there isn't a specific class on, like, you would take a class on trauma. So I took additional classes on treating trauma. So we had our general class that was included in our training, and then I received additional training, and then yearly because I do continuing education, so I continue to take classes on IPV because that's something that I see in my clinical practice. So it's something that I stay. So these are things I'm saying. This isn't in here. So that's what I personally do to stay on top of changes in treatment and literature and research and just kind of what's going on in the field of psychology. Question: did you take a course during your psychological residency that was on BSS? Answer: I didn't do a psychological. Ooh, I wasn't ready. So this is the first look. So I had not read through all of this before. I agree that she's being precise. I don't think she's being evasive. I don't think he's asking great questions. I personally don't feel like he's asking great questions, and he keeps forgetting it's psychiatry, not psychology. And so, um, okay. So answer: I didn't do. Okay. So wait a minute. Yeah. So. Uh, I didn't do a psychological residency. I did a psychiatric residency. And yes, we had, that's what I'm telling you. It was part of our lecture series. Yes. Okay. And then you mentioned Florida Psychiatric Society. That's correct. And what training did you receive in regards to that? Answer: I didn't. I gave the training. Question: on battered spouse syndrome? Answer: on DV. And that was included in the training. Correct. Question: all right. And where did you learn about BSS? Answer: I think we just talked about it. And we also did research online with my presentation partner. So we would update our slides because we did the presentation. So that was okay. So I think we're missing a question here, but I think this is Owen's question. So I think we might be missing some of the questions and answers, but we can tell who's who. Question: so as part of your licensing for the state of Florida to maintain your medical license, you have mandatory continued medical education courses that you have to take. And one of them is a 2-hour DV course that you have to complete every 2 years when you renew your license. Okay, so this is her answer. So maybe. Oh, so no, I think this is all her answers, sorry. So this is all, so she was talking about as part of maintaining her license, she has to take courses. One of them is a 2-hour DV course, um, that you have to complete every 2 years to renew your license. Oh. And so we would present it every 2 years at the Florida Psychiatric Society meetings to provide that for our members, that education. And so that we would have that for our relicensing. And we did that for probably 4 or 5 cycles before we handed it off to someone else to do the presentation. So I'm just going to break that down. So she led the presentation for her Florida board on DV for the medical providers that they have to do every 2 years in order to maintain their license. And so, and often, um, people that do expert testimony, they try to be really good about being precise, answering the question that they're asked, and making sure that they fully understand the question. So this is really common. All right. This is oh, like this is a lot. This is a lot. Um I don't know when she sleeps, like, it sounds like she does a lot. But I think her morning rounds could be, like, an hour or 2. I'm not sure how long morning rounds takes. I know when I worked at a psychiatric hospital, and we would have how many kiddos? And each, because there would be I think there were 2 or 3. There might have been 2 teams, and so they would be half per team. Yeah, because I could have 5 clients on my caseload. So we probably had 30, about 30 clients per broken, so I think there were 60, the maximum of 60 clients total that were in the psychiatric ward. Boy, alright. Okay. So question. So you would actually do the presenting for the other medical professionals for their CMEs for their credits on DV? Answer: that's correct. Question. Okay. Do you have those slides or PowerPoints? Answer: I do not. Dr. Ginnery may have them still because we stopped doing it about 4 years ago, I believe. I handed that off. I can see if Dr. Ginnery has them still. Question: Is he with your office? Answer: She. No. She is a psychiatrist at North Florida Regional Medical Center. Question: Is that in Jacksonville? Answer: No, sir. It's here in Gainesville. Question: Okay. Spell her last name. And she spells it. Okay. Right. As it relates to Sarah Boone, do you have any diagnosis as it relates to her? Okay, this could be important. Okay, so this I'm going to make myself big for this. I'm going to make myself big for this because I think this was slightly different than what she said on the stand, and we're going to see what all she says here. Because he asked her if she has a diagnosis for Sarah Boone, and the answer I'm reading is no. She told me that she was previously diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. So that would be in there. She's being prescribed and um, axial. So I think blood pressure medication for that to help treat her symptoms. Whether it is a generalized anxiety disorder versus an adjustment disorder to her being in the facility is questionable for me, in all honesty. So she might have diagnosed her with an adjustment disorder just due to the increased pressures of, being on trial for, second degree capital M. But I haven't had enough time to go through everything thoroughly since I just saw her 2 days ago and process everything, in all honesty. I think she has also narcissistic personality traits was evident in the evaluation. And those would be my two major diagnoses. Okay. So she does. So, okay. She said no, but then she did talk about an opinion. So that's where, as it relates to Sarah Boone, do you have any diagnosis? And what I'm reading here is that I'm seeing adjustment disorder and narcissistic personality traits. Those would be my two major diagnoses. So I think that's exactly what she said. So, from my understanding, what you just said was, I agree with the generalized anxiety disorder that she's been diagnosed with. No. So, answer no. I said it would be a generalized anxiety disorder versus an adjustment disorder, and that I hadn't had time to fully formulate that opinion out. Question: What do you need? Answer: I need time to go through my notes and think about it and process it. But I had other depositions, as you're aware, yesterday, so I had to prepare for those and go through that. So I have not had time to process through all my notes prior to this deposition today. Question: Well, doctor, I'm not trying to inconvenience you. As you know, the judge set for October 7th for jury selection. Okay. Question: But I don't anticipate your testimony would be until later. Maybe we could discontinue your deposition and then reset it when you've got time to review. Because obviously, I'm not going to want to take your deposition and then you have other opinions that are not covered. Mr. J, what is your position? Mr. J says, conducting discovery after the jury trial starts is completely unacceptable to me, so that's my position. If she needs to issue a supplemental report or if there becomes a need for a second deposition, then we can address that. And they did the second deposition during the trial as part of their Richardson hearing, like as part of the new evidence presented that the defense didn't have. So back to Mr. J's response, but it would be my position that we need to get this done because the state doesn't have any appellate rights once the jury is sworn and jeopardy attaches. Mr. Owens: Well, you obviously understand my position. I'd like to finish the deposition today as well, but if she's holding out, that she may have other opinions and other diagnoses after she has had more time to think, review the paperwork, then obviously that creates an issue, the witness. But if that happens, I can bring that forward and then you can add your deposition at that point. If my opinions change after having reviewed further. So she did say that if her opinions change, that she would notify them. Okay. So Mr. Owens says, Mr. J says, I think we need to plow ahead. This is our time with her. The court reporter is prepared to give us a transcript by the end of the weekend. And if something needs to be amended, then she can issue a report. Then, if you need to take a deposition, an abbreviated deposition on the limited subject matter she is not prepared to testify on today, then we can do that. Because okay, so Judge K is by far my absolute favorite judge. That's my absolute favorite judge. Okay. And in this, Mr. J said, if something new comes up, you can do another deposition. And that was the curative thing that Judge K allowed. So, all right, we'll keep going. But the notion of halting a deposition today that is set for 3 hours and then doing a 3-hour deposition during trial, especially after jeopardy is attached, is not what the state would do. Mr. Owens, I'm not suggesting that, Mr. J. I'm suggesting what you said at the very beginning, which is let's finish, but if she has some supplement, then I would want to take a brief second deposition as it relates to any new diagnoses or opinions, which is what he did in court. Thank you, Judge K. All right. Mr. J says, okay, what I'm understanding her to say right now, there has been a previous diagnosis of an adjustment disorder and some records, and she just needs to review her records to see if she thinks that is the best diagnosis that she would give, as opposed to a generalized anxiety disorder diagnosis. Am I misstating that, Dr. Werner? The witness. It actually, you flipped them. Mr. J, okay. The witness. Or maybe, okay. Okay, so okay. That might be, okay. So she said, maybe this is Mr. Owens? Wait a minute. I'm just going to read. So she's saying that she has the generalized anxiety disorder, and I'm saying I want to review. Oh, okay, yeah. So this is the witness. Oh, because I think they're talking about Dr. Harper is saying that Sarah Boone had generalized anxiety disorder. I think that that's where we are. And I'm saying I want to review it more to see if I think it's more of an adjustment disorder to being in the correctional setting right now and the stressors that she is under right now, as opposed to a generalized anxiety disorder. Mr. J. Okay. So on this topic, if something new comes up, then we can address it. But if you have other topics to depose her on, then I would suggest we go on. Mr. Owens, I agree. I agree. And Dr. Werner, just let the state attorney know. I know that you may be, we're on, uh, we're on short time. If you do review your notes over the weekend or whatnot and formulate any other opinions, just let the state attorney know and we'll address it. Witness, absolutely. Mr. Owens, we're back to the deposition. Question. Okay, so it's my understanding that you believe she does suffer from either generalized anxiety disorder, which is consistent with what she's already diagnosed with, or an adjustment to jail time as some sort of an anxiety disorder. Answer, correct. Okay. Then you base that on your interview with her plus the test that you gave her. Answer, my interview and her description of her presentation and what's going on with her and how she's felt since being in the correction setting. And the test was a mental status exam, which is, I don't know if I would, that's, I don't know. So that's the whole thing. So eh. Question. And that test you gave was only test that you gave her. Answer, correct. I did a mental status examination. Okay. So, Mr. Owens, okay. And what you said that she believed she suffered from, oh, uh, one of those, and that's your diagnosis. And then you mentioned narcissism and that she meets some traits of narcissism. Answer, narcissistic personality disorder traits. Correct. Question. Okay. Tell me what criteria she exhibits that tends to meet her as a narcissist. Let's go. Answer, just her presentation, the way she described some of the milestones in her life and herself and her actions was in an overly kind of self grandiose manner to speak. Like when I asked her how far she had gone in school, rather than say, I'm a high school graduate, she said, well, I was about to sit for the entrance exams for college when my father died. Question, what does that indicate to you? By stating it that way instead of just answering, "Hey, I graduated from high school. What does that mean?" Answer, again, it's kind of a grandiose manner of saying, "I only graduated from high school. I didn't go to college," but she's talking about, she was going to go to college as opposed to answering the questions. Okay. Question, so she has some insecurities because she didn't go to college. Answer, but she presents it in a different light. So she was the majority of her employment was a receptionist type job. Cool. I didn't know what her employment was. So this is cool to read, which she would describe as being a front desk person. And then she continued to always describe herself almost every single position as the assistant to the office manager or the assistant to the owner of the company. So it was kind of elevating her position, although she was kind of that front desk person by her description. And so Sarah Boone always needed to be kind of important and she needed to be close to someone important, which can come off grandiose. Question. Okay. Answer. So those are just examples. In the manner that she described kind of her relationship, when she started to describe her relationship with her ex-husband and with George, there was ways that she described herself and her role in those relationships that was kind of elevating herself. Exactly. So it was just a number of ways that she just descriptive ways that she used throughout the evaluation of herself that appeared to have narcissistic traits. I agree. Question. And I've heard you say about how she answered the question about her education. We're going back there. How she answered her question about her employment. How she answered the question about her relationship with her ex-husband and George Torres. What other criteria would tend to indicate that she was a narcissist? Answer, I didn't say that she was. I said that she has narcissistic traits. And was that was the examples. That was the examples that I gave. All right. Do you have any other criteria that she has narcissistic type traits? Answer, no. It was how she presented herself. like, like, have you met her? Have you met her? Oy. All right. Okay. Um, Answer. So were there any other criteria? And so she says, as I sit here today, without sitting down and specifically going through my notes, yes. Question. Okay. Do you think she suffers from a personality disorder? Answer. I did not diagnose her with a personality disorder. Question. Did you think she met any criteria that would tend to support a diagnosis for a personality disorder? Answer. Well, we just went through the criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. That is a personality disorder. I don't think that's how she said it. I don't think that's how she said it. That's how I'm repeating it. Gosh. Oh gosh. And we are only Mr. Owens has like 60 more pages. I think there's like no 20, sorry. I said 60 because I'm on page 45. We're going to page I think Mr. J starts about page 60 or something. Oh, okay. Okay. Any other criteria that you felt like she might meet some other disorder? And so at that time it was no. But I think she did in her testimony, she talked about alcohol use disorder and doesn't sound like that came up during this. And alcohol use was discussed during, but I don't know if it's going to come up later. We'll see. Question. Okay. Do you feel like she suffers from post traumatic stress disorder? Answer. She didn't give me any criteria with regards to that. She discussed having fear and anxiety of his family and fear that they would come into the jail or have someone else come into the jail and harm her. She talked about that. And she spoke about having recollections, remembering harm during the evaluation. But those are the things she spoke about. Okay. Question. But don't you believe that she suffers from PTSD in your opinion? Answer. No. I would have to go back through my notes to see if she fully met that criteria. But in this, she said no. And so, question. Can you explain why you don't think she suffers from post traumatic stress disorder? And then this is the answer. No, I didn't say one way or the other. I would have to go back through my notes for that. Okay. So this is where she was on the fence about it. And by the time she went back through her notes, she was more confident that she did not feel that Sarah Boone met criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder. But the amazing Judge K corrected this with the on-site deposition. And the deposition went better than the cross-examination in front of the jury, in my personal opinion. But okay. And so is that something you may have in the future give an opinion about after some time reflecting on on your notes? She said, I may. Question. Okay. And that's something you will let the lawyers know about if it changes. And she said, yes. Question. You may have already answered this. You said that you felt like she met criteria for this anxiety disorder. So answer, no. She says so she definitely has the attributes and discussed with me that she has anxiety and symptoms of anxiety, and we discussed that. So whether it's attributed, whether those symptoms are generalized anxiety disorder, which is what she said she's been diagnosed with in the past, as opposed to an adjustment disorder, it's like that's where she is right now. Okay. What would the criteria that you would be looking for to determine whether someone suffered from an anxiety disorder? Again, generalized. So, answer again, generalized anxiety, feelings of restlessness, uneasiness. So, all of the general symptoms of anxiety, but it's typically related to numerous. With generalized anxiety disorder, the anxiety is not specific to one specific thing, it's generalized in all these different ways. I added the all these different ways. It can anything can make you anxious as opposed to an adjustment disorder that's just related to what's going on right now. Question. Was there any criteria that you felt like she exhibited that would indicate she suffered from anxiety disorder? I wish the big breaths and like pauses were in here too, because I'm pretty sure right there she'll be able to go, well, again, I think the criteria over. I think the symptoms overlap for the two disorders. Question between anxiety and the adjustment disorder. Answer correct. And those are restlessness and uneasiness. Answer yes. If she has symptoms of anxiety, so whether it's attributed to a generalized anxiety disorder right now or whether it's attributable to an adjustment disorder right now is the question. The actual diagnosis is the question. The symptoms aren't the question. And what she's trying to say is that right now, a lot of what Sarah Boone is describing is more anxiety in this moment related to her current event and not anxiety about general stuff. But and she might have had it, but I don't know. Hey, Cookie, with well, I'm guessing with Sarah being so manipulative, is it possible she could manipulate her doctor's diagnoses? And so, any person that's been charged with a crime has a motivation to try to present in a certain manner. And so any forensic psychologist or psychiatrist is going to be looking at that. When I do outpatient clinical assessments, people can have a motivation to present one way or another. And there is testing you can give that talks about response style. I covered that in my conversation about Richard Allen and his psychological testing, because the defense expert did testing and talked about response style. And so that's what we generally look at. All right, let's keep it going. Oh, gosh. Okay. Okay. And so I'll keep it going. Yeah, there are a lot of criteria for anxiety, can be, an increased heart rate. So, any of the feelings of that come along with anxiety, difficulty sleeping, decreased appetite, anything that comes along with being anxious. Question. Okay. Now there are two videos, and you said you didn't watch any video. There was a video of George Torres lying in the bed, and Sarah wants her keys back. Did you have a chance? Were you able to hear me just now? I did. Okay. There was a video of George Torres, because I think this is over Zoom. So they're doing a Zoom deposition. There was a video of George Torres lying in a bed at Sarah Boone. Sarah wants her keys back. Did you have a chance to review that video or speak to the attorney about it? Answer: no, sir. I saw no videos. Question: okay, yeah, you heard Sarah talk about her drinking alcohol. Answer: yes. I asked her about that, correct. Question: do you have any opinions about that? About alcohol as it relates to Sarah Boone? Great question. Because the answer is yes. I think Sarah Boone has an alcohol use disorder. Yeah. Question: and that is what we used to call alcoholism. Oh, poor baby. He meant alcohol abuse. Like, it's okay. And so she's gonna answer, we don't use the term alcoholism, but like as far as a diagnosis, as far as a clinical diagnosis by a psychiatrist or psychologist or even a therapist, alcoholism isn't a diagnosis. It would be alcohol use disorder. But I'm guessing that's what she said. Alcoholism, but we never used the term alcohol abuse and alcohol dependence. Those, but we don't use those anymore. It's alcohol use disorder. How long has it been called alcohol use disorder? That came into effect with the DSM-5, so about 5 years ago. I'd have to look. Question, and your diagnosis? Your diagnosis says she suffers from alcohol use disorder. Answer, yes. Question, is that based on the history that she gave to you? Answer, yes. And answer. And she acknowledged herself that she felt her drinking was problematic for her. Was her drinking was problematic for her? Question. Okay. Answer. When I asked her if she felt her drinking had been problematic for her, she said yes. Question. Okay. Do you have an opinion on the impact that Sarah's drinking had on her thinking and behavior on the night of this incident? Answer. Yes. I think it certainly affected her thought processes and behavior. I think they were both drinking. They acknowledged that. She acknowledged that. Question, in terms of Sarah, what impact did Sarah's drinking have, in your opinion, if you have one? What impact did Sarah's drinking have on her thinking and behavior at the time of this event? Answer, well, alcohol disinhibits people, so it probably disinhibited her. I don't know what her alcohol level was. They had, I think, 2 bottles of wine. Question. So what do you mean by disinhibits? Answer. It means, I'm sorry, answer. It causes people or allows people to do things they would normally do. And that's um question. So the alcohol, in your opinion, may have impacted her thinking and behavior at the time of the event. Answer. It may have. But unfortunately for her, it was voluntary intoxication. No one forced her to drink. Question. Right. Because legally in Florida, that makes a difference. Voluntary intoxication isn't a defense. And that's what she says. It was voluntary, which isn't a defense. Question. But the alcohol could have affected her thinking and behavior that night. Answer. Yes. Question. And generally, you think if it affects people and that they are disinhibited, they would tend to do things they normally wouldn't do. But that's not, y'all are claiming self defense. This isn't what y'all are claiming. Y'all are claiming self defense. You didn't blame it on the alcohol. They didn't. Okay. Answer. Yes. Question. Anything else you want to say about that? Alcohol, how it affects her behavior, her thinking and behavior at the time of this event? Answer. No. Again, I don't know what her blood alcohol level was at the time of the incident, so I can't tell you whether it did or did not affect her, which is, but I think the state is gonna ask in general the impact it can have, and she's gonna answer that question. Question. Okay. And then I know that Sarah, before I came on the case, maybe just as I was coming on, she wrote a bunch of letters to the judge and prosecutor. This is a great question. Y'all, y'all, okay. So there wasn't enough to diagnose antisocial personality disorder. I think she just thought it was more of she didn't have a um yeah, I they didn't go with that. They didn't go with that. Both of them thought it was narcissistic. I did say a dark triad, which could include, and that's just my personal opinion. Um, Dark triad includes psychopathic Machiavellianism, and so all right. Whew, let's keep it going. Do you have any clinical conclusions as it relates to her writing all those letters? Answer, not without having read them. So she didn't read those, the letters to the judge. Question. Okay. On the subject of BSS, generally, what are the characteristics that are present in an individual suffering from BSS? Answer. What are their characteristics? Again, it depends on each individual, but typically it depends on the harm. Dep- They're they're intimidated, if there's economic harm against them, they try to control them, they isolate them. And she's flipping back and forth between the harmer and the person being harmed. So it depends on each individual and their response to that. But typically they're quiet and meek, kind of people describe it as walking on eggshells, trying to avoid conflict with the harmer. Question. Any other general characteristics that you have mentioned, or that you haven't mentioned, relating to an individual, oh my gosh, from BSS. I mean, there are, statistically, underemployed, undereducated, lower educated. So she's just talking. And I don't even think this came out during her testimony. It crosses all boundaries. It is more prevalent in the lower SES. There are a lot of stats on that. Okay. Question. Any characteristics other than what you've mentioned here today that you typically see in someone suffering from BSS? Answer. No. I think those are the big ones. Question. All right. Within the psychiatric and psychological community, what are criticisms about BSS? Answer. I'm not sure what you're referring to. Question. Well, it would seem in the field you would have some detractors from this condition. No. I know it's tied into post-traumatic stress. They're you're familiar with that, how BSS is tied to post-traumatic stress? Answer, yes, it can be. Question, okay. I don't think is an actual diagnosis in the book you mentioned, the medical book. There is one for PTSD, but there isn't one for BSS, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and battered spouse syndrome typically falls under PTSD. Is that correct? Answer, if they meet criteria, they can qualify for that diagnosis, correct? Or sorry, correct. I said that too high, but yeah. So she said correct. Question, okay. And I guess it's a general question in the field. Have you heard criticisms about forming opinions that somebody suffers from BSS or anything about that condition where they think it's not legitimate? That's what I'm getting at. So I've never heard somebody say that it doesn't exist. And her answer was, "No, I have not." Question, I'm sorry. Answer, no. Uh, Question, no criticisms? No criticisms? It's been in the law, it's been in medicine. I think Lenore Walker is the first one. So, this is where uh, Owen sometimes needs to take a breath because I think she's agreeing with him that there aren't criticisms. And um, uh, Dr. Harper did read did read those things too, I believe. I believe Dr. Harper reviewed the same things. She's typically called by the defense. Why doesn't anyone bring up that Sarah was an alcoholic? Yeah, so I've talked about that here on my channel before. All right, I'm gonna make myself small. Okay. Oy. All right, let's keep it going. Okay. And so, question, so it's established, you would agree, it's established in the psychiatric, psychological community that BSS is actually a syndrome. Answer, it's a pattern that we recognize. Yes, it's not a diagnosis because, like, it's not in the DSM-5. Okay. So question. Okay. And as a result of that pattern, the individuals who are suffering from it, I don't want to say they suffer from psychosis, but an altered mental state. Answer. They may, some of them. Question. Okay. Have you ever been allowed to testify as an expert on BSS? Okay. Huh. Okay. So the answer is no. Question. Or any other field, have you ever not been allowed to testify? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Have you ever not been allowed? Question. Sorry. I read that wrong. Have you ever not been allowed to testify as an expert in battered spouse syndrome? She says no. Or in any other field, have you ever not been allowed to testify? The answer is no. What is your clinical training and expertise? We're going to skip over that part. She already answered that question. She already answered that question. Question. Have you ever found that somebody qualified for BSS? Answer, again, that's not a diagnosis, so it's not something that I would document in the medical record. I would document that they're a victim or had been involved in IPV, which is what it's called. Question. But have you ever formed an opinion with a patient that this person right here, I understand you've got instances where they've been a victim of DV, and so they're coming to you to be treated, or they're coming to you in a crisis type situation, and you find out that that part of the reason they're in crisis is because of them being a victim of DV. But in terms of you actually assessing somebody, seeing somebody that you could be able to actually form an opinion, yes, I believe this individual suffers from BSS. Have you ever been able to do that and form an opinion that's um, that's the case of any of your prior patients? And so her answer is no. My opinion would have been that they were suffering from an acute stress disorder, which is an actual diagnosis prior to PTSD, secondary to IPV, which would be my opinion. I would not have, he cuts her off. Question. Have you ever testified in court that somebody suffered from BSS? Answer. I don't know that I've said those terms. Again, IPV, and it's not a diagnosis. It's a collection, symptoms that you identify or report that they identify or report. Okay. Question. Have you ever testified in court that someone did not meet criteria for battered spouse syndrome? And so that's where they're getting stuck on the words. They're getting stuck on the words. And so she's going to say, no, again, I don't know that I would have used those words because it's not a diagnosis that I would testify to. It's a group of symptoms. Question. Is it your opinion that Sarah Boone does not suffer from BSS? And then her answer. No. Again, I would have to go through my notes to fully formulate an opinion on that, but I would think she certainly was involved in a harmful relationship. But you haven't formed an opinion one way or another about whether Sarah Boone suffers from battered spouse syndrome because I think he's getting excited. Okay? I think I think she's getting excited right now. And so, um I think they just needed all of the criteria. I was concerned about saying the full personality disorder until I saw those videos from that Thursday of trial. Once I saw those videos, it was it was very clear, extremely clear. But I've been talking about narcissism and Sarah Boone probably since my like first or second video because the entitlement just was seemed to be very clear. And so, yeah. Um, okay. Oy. And so, um, she says, I think I would want to go through it, make sure, but I believe there was a lot of harm in her relationship. She described being threatened. She talked about, the different kinds of violence cycle. Ooh, and that's interesting that she mentioned the violence cycle because I've never had somebody in an IPV situation bring up the violent cycle on their own. Normally, I'm the one that educates them on this, but this is something that she had been researching and learning about. And so, all right. So most likely she does. I don't have an issue with that. So she's saying, yeah, she could have battered spouse syndrome. That's what she said. Okay. And then, so to be fair, from I know you saw her for a couple of hours, 2.5 hours. Whatever the case may be, and you're trying to do your best, right? As we're all trying to do, you know, do our job. And I know you felt like, okay, she's been diagnosed with this anxiety disorder, and you think maybe it's more an adjustment to the jail situation, and you felt like so you have that opinion. And then you also have an opinion that she tends to meet some of the criteria for narcissism. You've said that, correct? And then I hear you saying now that she may very well meet criteria for battered spouse syndrome, but you want to look at your notes and reflect on that some more. Correct? Correct. Are there any other diagnoses besides the ones I mentioned? And she adds alcohol use disorder we spoke about. Answer. Okay. All right. I forgot about that one. That would be the fourth one. Answer. Correct. Question. And that was based on what she told you in terms of her history with the use of alcohol. Answer. Correct. Any other diagnoses other than those four potentially? Answer. No. Question. Okay. Do you intend on expressing any other opinions than what we've spoken about here today? She says, I will answer whatever questions I'm asked. Okay, well, I'm asking now. I mean, you're the expert. I'm not. You're the one that's evaluated her. You're the one that's given her the test. I don't know the field like you do. You know the field. I've understand you've said, hey, I want to think about this some more. I want to review my notes, see if, but in terms of right now, without any further reflection, without any further, yes, sir. She interrupts him. Reading of the notes, any other opinions that you can think you could express in any form or fashion with all this experience, almost 1,000 jury trial or 1,000 trials you've testified in as an expert, anything else that comes to mind that would be an opinion you might express in Sarah Boone's case. Anything else that I'm asked in regards to how her diagnoses come into play with regards to her case, I guess. What other opinions do you believe you're qualified to express as it relates to Sarah Boone and the facts and circumstances relating to this case? Answer. Anything in regards to her diagnoses, I guess. Oh, good God. I think we have a few more pages. We're almost there. Of those four things we mentioned, correct. Okay. Is there anything else you need to do on the case other than potentially go back through your notes to reflect on the interview and whatnot? I know we didn't record the interview, did we? Answer, no, I'm not that I was informed of. So the interview was not recorded. Question, okay, I should have done that, but we didn't. But other than that, the notes that you have reviewed that were given to you and the interview and the testing you did, correct. Is there anything else you need? Yes, I believe I'm waiting to review the deposition of the defense expertise, of the defense expert. Dr. Julie Harper, I believe so, yes. And Dr. Michael Brannon, yes. I believe I'm waiting for those deposition transcripts. Okay. This part did not come up during their little back and forth that she hadn't yet reviewed Dr. Harper's deposition or Dr. Brandon's deposition. So even though, so Mr. Owens, I'm going to make myself big for this one. So Mr. Owens is making this huge deal that she didn't watch the testimony of the expert, but she did review the deposition, which she would have an idea of what their testimony is likely to be. So I wouldn't have been there either if I could have had access to their deposition. Oh, okay. All right. Would it be important for you to review any other records, like medical records or anything of that nature? Answer. If there's anything that I have not reviewed that is disclosed that I'm aware of, I'm happy to review it. Question. What about the jail medical records? If we were able to obtain those? Answer. Absolutely be happy to review them. Question. Anything else you feel like you would need that you haven't gotten to be able to express opinions in this case that you've mentioned here today? Answer, no, because I don't know what else is out there. So no. Question. Okay. So you mentioned forensic work. Oh, I'm not going back through her forensic work. I'm not. I'm not gonna do that. Oh, they go back and forth to her salary and the split of things. Like I can't do that. I just can't. So now they're gonna talk about her rate. Okay. Uh, okay, so question, and how are you being paid in this case? Answer. What do you mean, how am I being paid? Question. It's court appointed work where we've got a flat fee, or is it by the hour? And then answer. No, it's not court appointed because the prosecution, she wasn't appointed by the court to do this. Question. All right. You're being paid by the state attorney's office. Answer. Yes, that's correct. Question. Do you charge by the hour? Answer. Typically, yes. Question. What is your hourly rate for the state attorney type work? Answer. I want to say I don't do the billing, but I want to say it's $3.50 an hour, which is question. Do you know how many hours you have in this case? Answer. I do not. Okay. Answer. I'd have to look. Question. Is there a cap on the number of hours that you can put in on the case or just as much as I need to be ready to testify for the trial? Answer. I don't know because in all honesty, again, I don't pay attention to that. My assistant deals with the financial and the billing. I just do the work. I love that. So I do all of my billing. I do all of that stuff myself. All right. And I know you're testifying here today, but it sounds like you may be doing additional work in terms of reviewing your notes and reflecting on the matter. Answer. Yes. Question. How many more hours do you anticipate doing that type of work? Question. It may take me a couple of hours to go through this. If they actually want me to type a report, that'll take much longer, but they haven't indicated that they actually want a typed report at this point. Question, is that normal? Is it normal when you're testifying in something like this that you would need to report? I know in insanity cases, maybe, and in competency cases, maybe you would submit a report, something like this for BSS. Is that normal to submit a report? Answer, a lot of times I do. The majority of cases, I submit reports. It's very rare that I don't submit a report, in all honesty, but I think this case was rushed. And in getting her seen and getting to this deposition, that there wasn't a report, which actually writing the report helps me formulate my opinions and get all my ducks in a row with regards to symptoms, pointing out everything, just pulling everything together. Yeah, like so when you write the report, because when I do a psychological evaluation, at the end of it, I have a general idea of where we're going. But when I sit down and do the report, like just clinically, that's where like things start falling into place. So I get that. Even for BSS cases, you submit a report. Answer, I would say yes. Question, okay, have you been asked to submit a report in this case? Answer, in the majority of cases, I submit reports. Okay, do you know how you could have huh? So the question is, do you know how you would have been what? Oh, do you know how you would have been called to handle this case? I mean, were you selected as opposed to any other person in Orlando? You know, Orlando's a pretty big city. You think they would have found somebody there? Oh, because she's in Gainesville. So I think Owens is pointing out the fact that she's in Gainesville. So this is a normal thing, and I think they ask it during the deposition so they can ask in front of the jury if they want to. Okay. So sometimes they point out how much an expert is getting paid in a case because sometimes it's like if one expert is being paid significantly more than another expert. So if there's an expert that's $1,000 an hour versus $250 an hour, sometimes the jury, I don't know, like sometimes they do talk about how much experts are getting paid. What first? Oh, oh, what does this line of question have to do with Sarah? We'll never know. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm excited for because Mr. J stay is on point and like I think he's efficient with his time. And so I think his cross examination is going to be short. So we will get to that in just a second. All right. So I mean, yeah. So why she was selected? Was there some reason that you had some specialized expertise that you were selected over somebody here locally? Answer, I do not. Question. Okay. Are you I don't know much about this area. You would have to ask them why they chose me. I can't. Question. Okay. I'm from the Pensacola area, so I'm not familiar. Are you pretty well known in this geographical region of Orlando, Gainesville? Maybe that was the reason? Answer. I do because I think it's like I don't, so I think I think it's I do a lot of small cases in the Orlando area, but I do quite a few capital M trials down there. Question. Okay, so other than the couple hours that you intend to maybe reflect on your notes and anything else, any other work you intend to do on the case? Answer, no, sir, not that I'm aware of. Excuse me. Question. And you've expressed all your opinions, at least generally, here today. And he added the at least generally. Answer. Yes, sir. Ah, question. Is your testimony at trial, is that more expensive than the 350 an hour? Answer, I don't believe that it is. In state cases, I don't believe that it is. I think it's statutory mandated, in all honestly, what they pay. So I think the court may has a maximum fee of what you can get paid. Question, just double dog here. You admit that you have no other opinions other than the ones you've expressed here today. Answer, not sorry. So the answer that I've been asked about. If I'm asked something else, that I'll offer it. Question. You've been provided all the resources you need to rely on and express your opinions. Answer. I've based an opinion on the resources that I've been provided. If there's other things out there to be provided that may or may not change my opinion. Question. And you agree that opinions are subjective, not based on authority, correct? Answer. It's based on my years of training and expertise. Question. But it's your subjective opinion. Answer. Correct. Mr. Owens, ma'am, thank you for your time. Witness. Yes, sir. Thank you. Okay, so before we get to Mr. J, let me make sure that there aren't questions. Glad to be here. So I do not work with people that have done serious crime. So I have worked with people that have been involved with the juvenile justice system. But so I'm a clinical psychologist. I am not forensic. And I used to do court ordered assessments, court ordered treatment. With court ordered, the motivation is to just do it because the court told you. And my practice is so full. I can fill my practice on just clinical cases, kids. So right now we have a mental health crisis with anxiety and depression. The unaliving, self unaliving rate for kids and teens is really high. And so I've shifted my focus to supporting clinical cases versus doing court work. And then I get to, so this is my fun time. Okay. So I'm here on YouTube because I want to be, I think it's fun. And that's what we do here. Me being here on YouTube. So this is not so I'm not a full-time streamer. I don't want to be. So I have a full-time private practice where I do my notes, my reports, I do scheduling, I do billing, I do all those things for my practice. And so that's why I'm here. Like I think it's this is almost like body doubling. I wanted to read this deposition, but if I had read this by myself, like I might have thrown my computer. Like not in real life, but I would like I'm so glad that I get to go over this with you all because this is super super fun. And then Lori Reese says 3 times Owens has elicited an answer that blows apart his subsequent argument. Just good gosh. So glad to be here. Um don't forget to press like. Okay. All right. So now for Mr. J. Cross examination. I'm still small. Good. Okay. So Mr. J says, if you don't mind, can you turn to the Aspire records that were sent to you? Let me know when you have them. Got it. Mr. J. All right. At the bottom right corner of those records is 3 page numbers. Yes. All right. So we're going to go down to these pages. Okay. In these records, did Aspire diagnose her with adjustment disorder and alcohol intoxication? Answer, yes. All right. So that's their diagnosis. And then we had that discussion with Miss Boone on Wednesday about some earlier visits to a hospital where there are no records from that they diagnosed her with an anxiety disorder and prescribed her Xanax, which I wouldn't recommend for somebody that has a substance issue. Xanax has a high risk of abuse, but that's just my own personal thoughts. Um, is that not true? And so she says, I don't believe it was a hospital. I think it was her primary care physician, is what she testified to. And actually, I'll go backwards because what they diagnosed her with was an adjustment disorder and alcohol intoxication with mild use disorder. Answer, okay. So so the answer is so they did alcohol use disorder also. Because I think she was when she was treated, she was likely intoxicated and they diagnosed an alcohol use disorder too. They probably did both. Question. Excuse me. And her blood alcohol levels are are what they no sorry. So and her blood alcohol levels are in those reports. We don't need to discuss that. Answer, okay. In regards to the anxiety versus adjustment disorder or both, which it would only be one, it wouldn't be both, but okay. It seems that there is a past diagnosis for each of those, correct? Answer, that's correct. Question, and for you to make a distinction between the two of whether significance there might be in that distinction, you would just need more time to think about that. Answer correct. Okay, all right. Now, in regards to trauma, is trauma something that is subjective to the person who is on the receiving end of it? And let me give you an example. One spouse may come home to another spouse and call her a jerk. And that person who was called a jerk may think that it is the end of the world, cry for a weekend, and file for divorce. Whereas another person may brush that off as nothing. Is that a fair assessment or example of how trauma works? And so she's going to say each individual is different with regards to how they perceive things coming at them. So, question. So, even in a harmful relationship where both people in the relationship may be harmful towards one another at different times, does that necessarily mean that they are internalizing that as trauma the way someone else may or may not? And so she says, correct, not necessarily. Now, I want to make myself big for this. So we saw the videos of George, and in my personal opinion, just based on the publicly available information, what we saw, to me, he was showing signs of trauma. I saw signs of trauma with him, and everything we saw, I did not see any signs of trauma from her, though that's just my own personal thought. She seemed like the instigator, in my personal opinion. And yes. Okay. And so, question. Do you think we haven't done well teaching handling adversity and coping skills to kids now they're suffering? And so, Terry, this is something that I work with parents on. So the other day, I got a message from my kiddo's teacher letting me know that he was struggling with kind of at just so my kiddo doesn't like school. He'd rather be home playing Minecraft. Like he just would, understandably. And so my husband and I sat down with him and we talked with him about growth mindset, how we have to do things we don't like, how so we talked with him to help build resilience. We're teaching him skills. We're teaching him perspective taking. We're teaching him those skills and resources. And if at any point he needs a therapist, I'm going to get him his own therapist because I'm the thing that makes therapy work is when I'm working with somebody that I don't see every day, that isn't a part of my life. So those professional boundaries are really important. And so I can't be a therapist to my child. He might need his own therapist, which is fine. And that's not a reflection on me as a parent or what I am or am not doing. It's just, hey, if my kiddo needs more support, if me and my husband need another neutral person to help support us, support our child, we are going to do that. There's a great book called Anxious Kids, Anxious Parents by Reed Wilson and Lynn Lyons. And in that book, they talk about how anxiety. So, anytime I've worked with an anxious kid, there's always one or both anxious parents. Like it's like every single time there's some anxiety in the house somewhere. And sometimes when a parent has anxiety, sometimes they rescue their child from their own emotions. And so I work with parents on handling that. And I have a whole video on resilience. I have a lot of different resources. I have a whole playlist called therapeutic resources that just talk about that education. I hope that's helpful. All right. All right. So let's keep going. All right. And so the question is, so just because someone is in a harmful physical relationship with another person, does that mean they will meet criteria for BSS? And she says, no, not necessarily. And question, I don't know that we've talked about it, but is efforts to control another person, is that a component of the battered spouse syndrome? And the answer is for the harmer, but not the person being harmed. So not for the victim. The victim is normally not trying to control the person that's harming them. They would never, because that would cause more issues. So for example, if one partner has the other partner's identification papers and won't return them over to that person, is that an element of control? showing that that person is trying to exert control over the person that wants their identification papers. And we know why he's asking this question now, because Sarah had George's birth certificate, I think his social security card, and his ID, and he was unable to cash his check because she would not give that back. And the answer was yes. Question: giving gifts to another person in a relationship. So partner A gives partner B a gift, and then still, when it's convenient, considers that to be partner A's property, even though it was a gift to partner B. And we heard about that on the 911 call. And she says, yes, it's coercion and a form of financial harm where you're, giving things and taking it away. So, mm. Is isolation any relevance to BSS? I don't know, it's not a diagnosis, but if partner A is isolating partner B from family, friends, and coworkers, does that have any influence on a decision by a healthcare professional whether this is signs of BSS? And she's going to say, yes, that's one of the symptoms that you see in IPV. One of the ways of manipulating or controlling someone is isolating them from friends, peers, and relatives. So, question: how about if partner A is threatening partner B with legal process, such as arrest or following through with prosecutions? Is that an element of control that would be criteria for BSS? And she says, yes. Again, it's threats and coercion. And so the state is laying out. So Owens should have been prepared that the state was going to say, Sarah, you're the one that's harming him. Like they should have, everybody knew that was coming, but it is what it is. Question: how about tearing up the other partner's, oh, sorry, how about tearing the other partner down verbally, telling partner B that he or she is worthless? I'm the best thing that's ever happened to you. You will never do better than me. Those sorts of things. Does that have any influence in this BSS? And so the answer is certainly that lends itself to emotional harm, which goes along, it's not just the physical, it's financial, it's SA. There are different types of harm. Question: can a partner in a relationship, even without being subjective to physical harm, be made to feel worthless and out of control and dependent on the partner that says those things to him or her? And the answer is yes. And then question: is there any sort of phraseology or words that describe when there actually isn't physical harm happening, but psychological, and it's emotional harm? And then, is that a diagnosis in the DSM, or does it fit under PTSD or other trauma-related issues? So, okay, this lets me know Mr. J knows his DSM. So in the trauma and stressor-related disorders, there is an additional, because if people don't fit into PTSD, if they don't fit into other categories, there is this catch-all phrase. And so the answer, no, it's not a diagnosis. Again, it's something that we would recognize. You may have an adjustment disorder due to that, an acute stress reaction to that. So it's something that we would identify as one of the stressors that's causing the diagnosis, but it's not a diagnosis in and of itself, which is completely correct. Question: prior to saying that a particular person has signs or the recognized criteria for BSS, what sorts of things would you like to have as a practitioner besides just a history given by the person that's alleging that they were harmed? And so she said collateral from other individuals who are familiar with the relationship, medical records that indicate they've received treatment for different injuries, uh, police reports, if there's prior arrests or documents of police coming out to the home. A lot of times they would go home, no, go to the home in years past, but not, oh, sorry. So sometimes it doesn't always result in an arrest. Sometimes they end up getting Baker acted when there's harm in the home, and as opposed to getting arrested. So any documents that may lay out kind of a pattern of emotional harm, or sorry, not emotional, I added that part, of harm and turmoil in the relationship. Okay. So anything that is not dependent on the credibility of the historian. He says correct. Like you wouldn't just take Sarah's word for it. So okay, um so for example, if there's a video that exhibits partner A accusing partner B of stealing car keys, the credibility of that is dependent on the person accusing the other person of stealing the car keys. Even though there may be other possibilities such as just losing the car keys. And I could see Sarah blaming him for taking her keys when she just like couldn't find them. I could see that happening. Answer, correct. Or misplacing them. Yes, correct. Question, when the historian of the harm has alcohol abuse. So he asked this question, which is exactly what he asked on direct as well. Okay. So when the historian of the harm has alcohol abuse disorder and is acutely intoxicated, has narcissistic personality tendencies, even if they may not meet 5 criteria or whatever it is in the DSM-5 TR, are those red flags to take what the historian is saying with grains of salt and require extra cooperation? She says they are. Just being in the criminal arena to start with is a red flag that you want to take everything and kind of cross check everything that you're being told. Now, in particular, with the history that Miss Boone gave on Wednesday about the date of the offense, I know you were taking notes. Can you tell us starting from when they woke up? I remember that being the question, kind of redirecting to that. Take us through what she said was her day, and we can stop. So, answer yes. Uh, Question, it'll be a long narrative and we can stop as needed. And so she says, okay. So she said that they woke up in the morning. He wanted to drink. She asked him if they could clean the house together in an effort to kind of distract him from that. She said they cleaned, did laundry, vacuumed, went over to the back porch where they smoked, drank, and talked. Let me stop you there so that we're clear. And I don't know if we ever clarified it on Wednesday. Did we take that to mean smoking nicotine versus cannabis or something else? And so I took it to mean smoking nicotine because she told me that she'd only done cannabis three times in her life. Okay. All right. Go on from there. Thank you. So it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon by this point because they actually didn't. She later went backwards and said she didn't know what time they got up. So it wasn't necessarily morning. So by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they had finished cleaning and they were on the back porch smoking, drinking, and talking. She couldn't recall if they ate lunch, but he got a bottle of wine. They'd had a half a bottle from the night before, and then they got another bottle of wine. Mhm. She said they went to Publix together and then they were back on the porch hanging out and they got out the dartboard and they were playing games. In general, she said he began thinking about life in general, got upset. That part didn't come out on direct. I don't remember that part. I don't remember him getting upset as they were sitting on the back porch talking. Wait a minute. Let me go back down. Well, she said he began thinking about life in general, got upset. She said she was afraid that, oh, okay, that she would get hit and asked if he wanted to call his daughters. She acknowledged that she knew his daughters would refuse to speak to him when he was drunk. And so that upset him more. Then she thought she would show him her art. Sorry, it's not funny. So, oh, it's all about him. It's all about him. Good gosh. Welcome, welcome, Uncivil. Good gosh. All right. And then he eventually called his brother. She said that he was sad and that he seemed and that seemed to be a turning point for him. And then she said she pushed him and tried to get him to tell his brother that he had pulled her down the stairs the night before. So, And I questioned her about that because she said, that she was worried that he was getting upset and she didn't want to upset him, but yet she said she was trying to get him to tell his brother that he had done something to her the night before, which seemed to me like that would be upsetting, more upsetting for him. And she kind of denied that. She said that they stayed outside for a while and they decided to go inside. She said he was upset and introduced a puzzle. Oh, sorry. She said he was upset. She introduced a puzzle that they were doing and they finished it. Then they did some arts and crafts. And again, she offered that she was trying to unfocus him on hurting her and being upset, although he hadn't done anything at this point. She said that she was entertaining him for herself to be okay. Okay. She said it was a normal day for her. She was afraid all day. He was sad and upset. They listened to music, but she doesn't like his music. It's angry rap music about Kay and hurting things, but he was dancing with a dog. And then she said they were sitting on the couch, and at some point, he went to get cigarettes and came home with more wine. So at some point, he left and came back, but she wasn't clear where in this timeline that occurred. Yeah. If we didn't have the video, we wouldn't know either. Like they were able to get the video from there. Um And uncivil, the interesting thing is she would have got away with it if she didn't document her harm of him. Like, if she didn't document everything she did, she might have got away with it. She really, really might have. And so, um, ugh, justice for George. Ah, boy, I'm just gonna keep going. And so she went upstairs to take a shower for a while. Wait a minute, let me go back. Okay, I missed the hide and seek. Okay. I missed that part. Okay. And she said, we were both laughing and having a good time, and they were sitting in silence. And he said, "You're it." And she said, "Now we have to play hide and seek." And she was it. So we're playing house rules, hide and seek. So she went upstairs to take a shower while he was hiding, and she stayed up there for a while. And then okay, so she was counting, but I thought she was mad he didn't find her. Okay, so she doesn't know about the house rules. So she's trying to make this really fit hide and seek because that's not that's not. Okay. And then she came down, she got out of the shower, I guess. She decided it had been enough time. Then she got out of the shower, was coming down the stairs, and she said there was a suitcase and some clothes that they had gotten out to donate and they were trying to get that together. It was on the floor in the living room. And honestly, like the fact that it was his suitcase breaks my heart. And I still think that he was trying to leave her that day. That's what I think happened. I don't for one moment believe that it was a good day. I don't believe it. And that she was coming down the stairs. She saw him kind of slipping into the suitcase as a hiding place. And she said, I saw him in the suitcase and I zipped him up and we were laughing. She said that he said he couldn't breathe. And she remembered feeling I couldn't breathe when he was, they added a different one. So I guess the SA stayed out of it. I guess they must have talked to her because um, I don't remember. I don't remember that part coming in. And and I was angry and I shook the suitcase. I lost control of the suitcase and it flipped. She said my son's baseball bat was right there. He put two fingers out and I hit them with the bat. I know. And she said, I know now. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay. He put two fingers out and I hit them with the bat. I know, she said. And then she said, I know. Now I'm definitely going to die. This is what it sounds like. This is what it feels like. I didn't want to leave him face down, so I left him right side up. I felt if he got out, I didn't care if he oh, if I died, I'm sorry. That was the I don't if I die, I die. I don't care if I died. Hmm. I was tired of it, tired of living in constant fear. I didn't want to live like this anymore. She said that she took the video and a photo to show him terror, Wait. Which because she intended to show it to him the next day, and that's what she said about it. Okay. Question. And did she indicate that she just felt like there was this generalized fear that she had a physical harm from throughout the day, every day? And answer, that's what she said, yes. Question. Now, does she describe her relationship as sort of she was the nurturer who was going to save him? Ugh, that part makes me sick. Her describe making her sound like she's his savior and ugh. And answer, yes, throughout her description of the relationship with him, yes, she did everything for him. I lies. He would lose his job. She'd go back. She would go she would go to his boss to beg them to take him back and get his job back for him, which would be embarrassing. If that actually happened, that could be embarrassing. So, she was, kind of linked to his family for him, and that's a lie. His family did not like her. She was kind of this almost like savior kind of presentation with regards to him. I agree. Does she ever describe that he tried to isolate her from her family? And the answer was she did not describe that. Does she ever describe him trying to prevent her from seeing her son or spending time with her son and having her son come over? The answer was no. She didn't say that he tried to prevent that. Question. Did she describe him ever isolating her from friends, preventing her from going out and seeing her friends? And then answer was no, I don't recall her saying that. Question. Did she ever describe that there were times, however, that he would take her debit card and or credit card and go spend money that she did not want to be spent? Answer. I don't recall her telling me that. Question. And that might have been something that was outside the scope of your evaluation. Answer. Right. Question. During the course of her relationship with George, did she describe that she went to her ex-husband's house as a place of solace to escape the situation with George? Answer, yes. Question, and that night of the incident, did she describe that there was anything preventing her from going to her ex-husband's house or to a neighbor or to anybody else when George was in the suitcase? Answer, no. Question, do people who suffer from um, substance abuse disorder other than alcohol, do people in that situation tend to lie about their use or minimize their use? Yes. Can you elaborate on that? Yeah. They teach us in medical school that you almost kind of double what people tell you they use. So if you know somebody has an issue with alcohol, if they say they had 2 drinks, you probably think 4 or more. That normally somebody that's in active addiction, they are going to minimize their use. Those are my words, not hers. And so, going back to her deposition, you should expect that they're actually using double that amount that they'll minimize when you ask them how much they use. It's pretty typical. Yeah. So, question. Okay. And again, you went through the text messages. Did you see anything in the text messages attributable to the phone number that apparently is Miss Boone's when the recipient is either George's brother, Moy, or short Moses, I think describing George in a poor light and saying bad things about George? And the answer was yes. There were times when she's, even texting George and cursing and said, sorry, and as I said, putting him down. Question. Did George again, we're attributing, who's using these handheld devices at any particular time, and we don't know that. But in any of the text messages that appear to be attributed to be sent from George, did he ever respond and retaliate and speak with the same tone and the words that she did? Answer, no. Not that I can recall. And he just didn't. He just took it. It's so sad. Nobody deserves that. In every video that I've done in the last like month, I think, covering this case, I always put the resources for male victims of DV because it's just my my heart goes out for him. Okay. Um okay. Okay. Did she in those text messages ever threaten the process of arrest if he or members of his family did not do as she wished? And she said, I think. And again, I if you don't know, then that's fine. Yeah, I don't recall specifically. I think there may have been one incident where that was brought up, but I don't recall specifically who was involved in the conversation. Question. And as far as controlling identification papers, one spot. Okay, so we already know that that's definitely a harmful thing. And then Mr. J, I don't think I have any other questions. Mr. Owens, do you have any follow-up? Mr. Owens, yeah, Dr. Warner, those are good questions by the prosecutor, and I've asked some questions. So Mr. Owens gets redirect. Oh, okay. Let me go back to the chat for just a second. Good. All right. So we're going to keep going. Okay. Is there anything else you can think of that you have not touched on that stands out in your mind that maybe you need to testify to here today to let us know every potentiality? She can't do that. Of course, we want to know everything, the good, bad, to ugly. So, is there any other catch-all maybe that he forgot to mention, I forgot to mention that you feel like is somehow relevant material and important to this case? So the answer is not as I sit here today. No, sir. Owens, that's all the questions I have. The witness. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Mr. J, again, if you have follow-up thoughts, after reviewing your notes and kind of having time to settle on everything, even though you work a tremendous amount of hours, please let me know so that I can let Mr. Owens know. Witness, absolutely. Um, so Mr. J, also, I know that I just received Dr. Harper's deposition while we were starting this deposition, so I will get that transcript to you. And then when I get Dr. Brannon's, I will get that to you. And if you formulate new opinions that you have not already told Mr. Owens about regarding what they said, then please let me know. Yes, absolutely. And so, oh, that was so long. Um, I love that Judge Kranek had a an additional deposition. So what Mr. Owens was upset about, and I do think that we just need to take a look at that real quick. Because there was a different question asked on direct examination by the prosecution. And so y'all, this will be quick, but I just want to play this part here.
Each individual again.
Generally speaking, it is important as an evaluator to get as much information as possible before rendering an opinion, such as diagnosing somebody with something out of the DSM-5, TR, or battered spouse syndrome.
Yes.
In this particular case, did you require any additional information to reach your conclusion about the relationship between battered spouse syndrome and the events of this evening?
I based my opinion on the information that I had. Certainly, if there was more information, my opinion would be subject to change.
And what was your opinion?
My opinion was that she did not give me enough information to diagnose her with post-traumatic stress disorder at the time that I evaluated her at the jail.
And specifically talking about... Yes.
So that was the part that started all of this. But I thought in her deposition, let me see if I can control F in this. I can. Okay. Let me share this again because a similar question was asked, and I think she gave a similar question, a similar answer. Let's share this tab instead. And so, uh-oh. So let's go here. Question. Okay. Do you feel like she suffers? And so this is Mr. Owens asked her this question. Do you feel like she suffers from PTSD? Answer. She did not give me criteria with regards to that. She discussed having fear and anxiety of his family and fear that they would come to the jail. She talked about that. So this was not a new opinion from I'm not a lawyer, okay? So any of the lawyers in the chat, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but she seemed to say almost the exact same thing. And so Owen says, "Can you explain why you don't think she suffers from PTSD?" And she said, "No, I don't say one way or another. I'd have to go back through my notes for that." And so during the deposition, she wasn't able to, but I feel like she gave a similar answer during her deposition. I don't think this is a um, I d I don't think the trial judge will have to come back on this. Mr. Owens still did not cite specific parts of the deposition in his filing. So when he was talking about this in his motion for a new trial, he doesn't quote. So the judge does not want to read all what we just did, all 87 pages of this deposition. He does not want to read that. Mr. Owens is going to have to say exactly where. And for the question that was asked, so the state actually asked the question that Mr. Owens asked during his deposition, but she gave an answer that was similar to me to what she gave in her deposition, I think. And that didn't even come up. I'm not a lawyer or anything like that. And Judge K, what happened was they were able to do a deposition right there on the spot. I think Mr. Owens was incredibly upset throughout that deposition, throughout like the rest of that cross, for the rest of Thursday, for the rest of Friday, and he needed to take a pregnant pause. If you watch the Carly Gregg's case, you know what the pregnant pause that the judge asked for. Like he needed to because he was in his fight or flight mode. And we don't always make, in my opinion, we don't always make great decisions when we are emotionally activated like that. And I think he started to fall off his game when he when he did that. I really feel like he ended up that ended up causing problems for Owens. Um Taylor, I think some of that was, I think even in the deposition, I was surprised how he automatically assumed that the psychiatrist was male. Now, I do think among psychiatrists, I do think psychiatry is a predominantly male field. If you don't know, so only 3% of psychologists are African American. So like it can be I do think in therapy there are more women teaching and mental like the counseling side switch to being more female dominated and but uh it was another medical doctor, and for some reason and some people just default to he, him pronouns, and so, like, sometimes if you're not sure, I normally default to they if I don't know, but I actively search and take a look at these things, and so, um, uh, um, and so differences of opinion can definitely be held here. Yeah, only 3%. Only 3%. 4% of therapists overall are African American. And so I appreciate getting to hang out with you all. Let me know if there are any more questions. Let me know if there are questions. And if not, I will see you all on Tuesday, most likely. Unless something major comes out, then I will see you all on Tuesday. All right. So I've enjoyed hanging out with you all. I will cover if there are major updates. So if Judge K has a hearing on this before the December 2nd hearing, I will definitely cover that. Anything new, I will cover. Anything old, her old letters, I don't want to do anything old. But if there's anything new, I will definitely cover that. I appreciate you all. I hope you all have a good one. Bye.